Karen McGregor is a best-selling author, international speaker, coach, trainer, and founder and CEO of the Speaker Success Formula.
Going through a divorce, having lawyers tell me, Karen, you have to go back and get a real job. This speaking and writing books business is not working for you. Just go back and get a job.
Her proven method helps entrepreneurs create, structure, and deliver compelling presentations to monetize their expertise and launch successful speaking businesses. But her journey to success wasn't easy. It began as a necessity to provide for her family after a divorce.
And so I have a really soft spot in my heart for people who do have a great message, they do have a great product, and they're not able to make it. And so that is my mission now, to be able to help those people.
Karen struggled to make a living from her speaking engagements at first, but eventually proved them wrong after developing her own system for monetizing her message.
And so combining the systematic with the intuitive and being vulnerable, being raw, and merging those together is really what I consider my sweet spot.
Karen has appeared on stage alongside some of the greatest thought leaders and speakers in the world, including Deepak Chopra, Michael Beckwith, David Wolfe, and Laura Langmeyer.
You see, my kids, one of the things that I'm most proud of is that they saw where I was at in the beginning, and now they're able to see that Mom didn't listen to those naysayers, and now we have this amazing rocking business that serves hundreds and thousands of people all over the world.
Karen is a premier monetization specialist who is dedicated to helping conscious entrepreneurs spread their message, sell their products and services, and transition into successful heart-selling entrepreneurs. Please welcome Karen McGregor.
Thank you so much, everyone. Can you hear me? Wonderful. So good to be with you. Before I get started, I want to acknowledge Charla for having the vision and the ability to pull off an event like this. We all know that one of the hardest things is to bring people together in unison for a common theme, and isn't she doing an outstanding job? So one of the things I want you all to know, so that not just half of you are listening to this talk, but all of you are engaged in this talk, is that I know the video said entrepreneurs, and that those are the people I primarily work with, but I want you to listen really carefully to what I'm about to share with you, because if you have a message, if you have a voice inside of you that you want to share with the world because you want to make change on this planet, then I highly recommend that you listen in. Everybody good with that? Yeah. Because like Charla, when you become really good at clarifying your message on stage, you can have a nonprofit like she does and raise over, is it 1.5 million you said? $1.3 million. Wouldn't that be amazing, right? Amazing. Yeah. But it all starts with a message. And so what I'm going to share with you today, yes, some of it is directed towards entrepreneurs, but I want you to keep an open mind, because if you are not, you still, in all of what I'm teaching you, can use this towards lifting a message into the world that's actually heard and people act on it. Because people often say to me, Karen, how can you help me be a speaker? And I say, I don't think you want to be a speaker. I think you actually want to change the world, and speaking happens to be the modality in which you choose to change the world. Do you see the difference? So it's no longer about us. I just posted something on Facebook and I said, you know, the divine works through us. And if you just ask and say, use me, whatever belief system you have, but use me to get to the world, to help to change the world. So it's no longer about us. So just look at the person next to you and say, I am so relieved it's not about me. Right? right? Because that's why people are scared to speak, right? So I'm going to show you today how to really unlock that impact that you desire to have. That's partly why you're here, is because you know you can make that change. Speaking may be one way that you do it. Myself, I grew up in a very small town of 300 people. In our town, nobody was expected to do anything big in the world. Has anyone ever come from, any of you come from a town like that? Yes? Yes? So I did not have a vision. I didn't have a dream. So for me to speak on a stage like today, or that stage in Dallas, or speak with these people, you probably recognize some of them, Brendan Burchard, Deepak Chopra, Dr. Dennis Waitley. I never dreamed of that. But what I can tell you is that just because I didn't dream it doesn't mean it can't happen. So what happened for me was I learned the how, the steps, the systems to actually do what I wanted to do, which was change the world through my message. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about why you might consider speaking, or even if you are speaking, why you might want to speak more than you currently are. And one of them is, whether you are working with a nonprofit or you're an entrepreneur, speaking is the highest return on investment for the time that you invest in getting that message, product, program, service out there. So let's take a look. When I say little or no money up front, there are hundreds of places to share your message right here in Edmonton. I was at one of those places last night. Right? And I spoke. There was wine there. I'll tell you the story about that later. First time on stage, glass of wine. Woo! This is a big thing. Anyway, worked in my favor, but I'll tell you about that later. But really, there is no money required on your part, and all you need to do, everyone, is have one powerful talk that changes people's lives. It's not about having a different talk every time you go out and speak. In fact, that's what's stopping a lot of women, because just like me, you know, single mom, lots of obligations. My mom is aging, so I'm taking care of her. I've got 2 teenage boys that eat every 3.5 minutes, right? We don't have time for much. That's why I want you to consider speaking, because you will have way more impact in a sliver of the time. It's also highly duplicatable. So when you have one powerful talk, how many talks? One, just one. Look at the person next to you and say, thank God for that. One. Is that not good news? One. One talk, right? It's highly duplicatable, which means that you can take your one powerful talk and develop it into a webinar. Now, if you don't know much about the online world, doesn't really matter. All it means is that your talk can be transferred to online PowerPoint with your voice running and actually sharing your message, or if you're an entrepreneur, also your product, program, service. So suddenly, that one talk is now available to the world. Does this make sense? Very powerful, right? The other thing is it has global reach. Last weekend, I had the privilege of speaking at TEDx Stanley Park, which is in Vancouver, and there are 2,600 people there. And a lot of people say, wow, that's a big audience you're speaking to, Karen. But it's not that. It's that there's millions of people that are going to be watching that video. Does that make sense? So now we have the capacity to truly reach the world with our message, and how powerful that is. In fact, this lady here, that's me with the hair. You always recognize me with the hair. But I'm actually coaching her on her TED Talk. And yeah, she was nervous about speaking in front of a few hundred people, but I said, that's nothing. Just think about the millions that are going to see your video. She didn't appreciate that comment. Anyway. So think about this. Once again, I'm going to remind you again, the biggest reason you should be speaking is because we are busy women. There's nobody in here that could say, I'm not busy, really, right? So in order to leverage your time, you speak. and you speak to many people regularly. And by regularly, I mean twice a month. How many people here think it's okay, you could do that twice a month? Could you do that? Yeah. So for those of you who are numbers people, you want to see, maybe you're an entrepreneur and you want to see how can I earn money doing what I love, which is sharing my message or my product, program, and service. So in the case of entrepreneurs, if you're speaking to 30 people, typically you'll have 10% of your audience want to work with you. In other words, you might be a coach, you might have a product, you might have a program. And if 10%, and that's very conservative, I'm Canadian, so you can trust I'm conservative. Okay. 20%, so if 10% of 30 and you have a $1,000 program, that's $3,000. Now hang on, for those of you that have a lesser price program, we'll still work out the numbers. And if 20% of your audience of 40 people said yes, which is a higher number, but also in the range of average, so 10 to 20%. If you had 2 of those talks a month, that's $11,000 in income per month, which also gives you the time freedom, right? So you're looking at $132,000 per year if you have a $1,000 program, product, or service. If it's $500, you're still making $66,000 a year, right? Working twice a month. How many people are interested now? All right, so here we go. Why aren't more people doing this? If speaking is such an amazing way of getting your message out, changing the world, getting your product into the hands of people who need it, why don't more people do it? So the common answer is, of course, stage fright, personal rejection, and that kind of thing. But I'm going to share with you that the more that I work with entrepreneurs, and I've worked with entrepreneurs on this same topic for 10 years now, hundreds of people come to me. What I realize at the end of the day is, yes, we all don't like rejection. True enough. And some of us have had more of our fair share than others. But at the end of the day, the biggest thing we're afraid of is not getting the results that we're hoping for by the end of our talk. So whether that's people taking action to do something that's important to our message, whether it's buying your program, product, or service, or raising funds for a nonprofit, the number one thing that bothers them is this. They do not know what's coming out of their mouth next. So think about this. If you're afraid because you don't know what's coming out of your mouth next, and even if you're a perfectionist and you work on that talk all bloody day and night and you memorize it, it doesn't mean that this will go away because you're not sure if what you're saying works. Does that make sense? What if you were sure? What if you could predict with astounding accuracy how the average people who are going to say, the average percentage of people that are going to say yes to your program, product, or service, or take action on your message, if you could predict that, would you be as nervous? Yes or no? No, absolutely not. So that is what I have found in working with a lot of people. So here's the thing. Whether you are doing an inspiring talk like TEDx, like I did last week, whether you are selling your program, product, or service on a stage and you're speaking for 45 minutes, you need a system. So look at the slide, look at the person next to you, say, it's all in the system, baby. It is. Would you agree that including making babies and babies growing, everything in life, nature, every single thing, businesses, everything has an inherent system, yes or no? Yes. So why would speaking be any different? Martin Luther King, a lot of people know that his I Have a Dream came from a spontaneous question from the crowd. And a lot of people say, but he didn't plan that, and it was his greatest. How did that happen? Well, I'll tell you how it happened, because he spent his whole life with systematic talks. He knew inside, outside, backwards exactly his message, the clarity, the flow. So when he was finally asked and the divine spoke through him, magic happened. How many of you would love to get to the stage where that magic happens? Because that's when you change the world. All right, this is me. When I first had my moment, in which everybody here on the stage has told their moment, mine will be very short, because I want to give you a lot of information today, but I do want to share with you why I'm up here. For many years when my kids were young, I tried to have workshops, I tried to speak a lot, and I stumbled and I made mistakes, and I wasn't really growing my business. On paper, it looked more like a hobby than a business, if my accountant were to look at it, right? And after several years of that, I just kept saying to myself, keeping myself small, by the way, using my kids as an excuse, not the reason, but the excuse. I'd say, you know, they're pretty young. It doesn't really matter that I'm failing at this. But then my husband and I separated. And the moment that he moved out, when he backed out of the driveway, I was watching this moving truck back out of the driveway. I'm sure any of you who have gone through trauma like that, you remember that moment. Or you remember the moment you have to tell your kids that dad's not going to be living here anymore. So, in that moment, I said to myself, how am I going to make this work? And in fact, my thoughts were reiterated by two lawyers the next day. They're big guys, and they said to me, Karen, you have your master's in education. You're a smart woman. Go back and get a job. Do the right thing. Is speaking and writing business, right, is not paying off for you? Just go back. And something inside of me said, there's got to be a way to do this differently. There has to be. I don't know what I'm doing wrong, but there has to be a way. And so shortly after that, I was blessed with a call to speak on a very large stage in Vancouver, at the PNE Forum. And I was one of two local speakers. Everyone else was world-renowned, people like Deepak Chopra. And my answer to that, of course, was yes, I'm going to do it, right? I was so excited. My God, this is like having a wedding, right? 3,000 people and Deepak. Deepak, I mean, how much more? Anyway, so got there. It was like my wedding day. It was a beautiful talk. It was very heartfelt, but those people were my peeps, and I had 4 beautiful programs. I had a table in the back all day where people could come and see me. And after my talk, everybody gave me hugs, but there was nobody who wanted to work with me. And I went home crying after it was done because I realized that I couldn't make it financially. And my dream was going to die. And so my kids asked me, well, how did it go, Mom? Because they were there, but, you know, they went home with their dad, and then when I got there, they asked me how it went. And I was just about to say the words of the lawyers, I got to go back and get a job. But I didn't. The lioness inside of me, this lioness that you've seen in all the women here today that were speaking on this stage, said, our lives are going to change forever. And they said, that's nice, Mom. I said, no, you don't understand. Our lives are really going to change forever. And these are my kids 2 years ago. You know how, the one on the right is 14. His name's Mitchell. He's now 16. Do you know the difference between a 14-year-old and a 16-year-old boy? He now looks like a gorilla. He's huge, right? He eats every 3.5 minutes. And the one on the left is an entrepreneur. He decided not to go to college. He's following in his mom's footsteps, and he's already saved, get this, $30,000 this year. Yeah, towards his own home. Yeah, and that was from earning income from his business, and he's 19. So I'm really, really proud of him. Yeah. So what did I learn? Well, it's what I want to teach you today. I know we don't have a lot of time, but I'm going to go through some really, really important pieces of what I learned that I want to share with you that made the difference between struggling to now being able to go, as an example, last year to Italy. The year before, I took all my kids and my mom to Poland and Germany. And we have a lot more time and, of course, the ability to travel and make a difference. The other thing is, anybody here who has a workshop or you like to host events, you can come and talk to me, because some of what I'm going to teach you today is also a part of a larger system in which you can actually use it in workshops and events to be able to increase the impact and the income that you have. Now, some of you might be saying, yes, Karen, but you teach about speaking. Everybody wants to know how to speak. Not everybody wants to know how to, whatever it is that you do, right? Fill in the blank. But this lady here is from Calgary, and you know, Calgarians like their meat. Would you agree? In general, right? She teaches people how to be vegan. Vegan in Calgary. She wasn't very successful, need I say more, right? But here's the thing. We repositioned. We didn't change her expertise. We repositioned her talk the way that she was doing it. We repositioned her offer the way that she was doing it, and she was able to sell 90% of her program, so it wasn't just a book. Book was part of it, but a whole program to 90% of the people. How do I know? Because I was in the audience. Is that typical? No. As I said, 10 to 20% is typical. But here's the thing. Vegan in Calgary. Huh? Let's give her a big hand for that. Right? Right? All right, so today we're going to talk about, very briefly again, because we're short on time today, 3 mistakes that keep audiences interested, or uninterested rather, in your talk. They're not interested and they're unwilling to invest. So how do we work through that? And also the opposite of that. So we're going to start with mistake number 3 and then go down to mistake number 1 being the most critical. But certainly let's take a look at this one because it's very common. The big mistake that a lot of people make, whether they are already speakers or you're not speaking at all and you're just starting out, is that you create the structure of your talk based on what you want to say. Now that sounds reasonable, doesn't it? But it isn't actually effective. We never ever write our talks based on what we want to say. We write them based on what the audience's problem is and how we can help them solve that problem, because that's where real change happens in the world. Would you agree? No change will happen if you simply want to say what you want to say. So the learning in this is the structure. You have to be aware of the structure. Not only are they buying the transformation, your audience is buying transformation. That's what they want. Unless they're your best friend, that's the only reason they're sitting in the seat, right? Your story is also what they're buying. So you heard a lot of women's stories today. But it does not have to be a huge, dramatic story. In fact, many of the simple life lesson stories are very, very impactful in terms of the engagement of the audience. Okay, that they don't need to have gone through the same thing as you, but they need to have felt. If you're writing notes, this is very important. They need to have felt the same thing as you, not necessarily gone through the same thing. Does this make sense? Okay? So maybe your husband didn't ever leave you or cheat on you or anything like that, but how many of us have had someone in our life betray us or suddenly leave when we weren't expecting it? That same feeling comes up. Would you agree? So story. The other thing is your expertise. So we'll talk about that right now. If you're thinking, I don't have a degree, Karen, I can't get up on the stage. I haven't finished my certification. I have 2 years left before I can even stand up on stage with authority. Well, unless you're an astronaut or a back doctor and you're talking about that specific thing, very, very niched talks, really today's audience is not actually looking for that. They're not looking for your degree. They're looking for results. All they want from you is to know that you got the results and that your clients have also gotten results. Would you agree? This goes for anything, nonprofit, corporate, entrepreneur. All people want now is results, and it's due to our digital age, okay? And the last thing is your client stories. Now, if you don't have clients, you can still learn from this because everybody has helped someone, and you can illustrate a point in your talk by having case studies, by having real life people that have gone through what you're trying to help the audience with. Does this make sense? So the first thing you want to know is don't give examples of people who are like you, because most of the people in the audience are not like you. Would you agree? Right? They're different. We talked about personalities earlier. Does this man have the same personality as me? Yes or no? Probably not. Reserved, shy, quiet, right? So he doesn't, yet he's still able to speak. So this is something I want you all to consider when you're thinking about speaking, is having a testimonial of someone who's different than you. Here's another one. How many of you entrepreneurs have heard somebody at some point either say or write or send on Facebook a message that said, oh my goodness, I know you said you would help me with this, but I got way more than I expected? Anybody? Nobody? Where's our entrepreneurs in the group? There's one brave soul raising her hand over there. Thank you. Good, good, good. How many of you have ever had someone say, I got more than I expected from working with you? Thank you. All the hands went up. Absolutely. This is important for your audience to know. And again, don't stick it out like a sore thumb. It should be part of your teaching. It should be part of your training within the talk. Here's another thing. A lot of us say, but I'm scared to look out in the audience and find someone who doesn't like what I have to say. Well, I'll tell you what, those are very few and far between, but this is generally what people look like when they are discerning. It doesn't mean they don't like what you have to say. They're just thinking about what you're saying and they're discerning the information. This is what they look like. Yeah, there's one right there in the front row, right? And they often don't smile because they're thinking, and they've got this furrowed brow. Well, I used to think that meant that, oh my gosh, I'm saying something that someone doesn't like. And someone even did that one day. They came up to me like this, and I thought, oh my goodness, what are they going to do when they reach me from the back row? And oh my goodness, I'm so happy you shared your message. And they became all animated, right? But up to that point, they had that discerning look. So watch that. This lady, nutritional consultant, she had a $2,000 program, and after I was able to help her, the point of the matter is she said to me, Karen, I didn't think you could help me, but I was going to take a little risk anyway and check it out. Right? There's people out there like that. They're going to be 20% of your audience doesn't think you can help them, but they might take the risk anyway. And if they do, they're your best raving fans. All right, mistake number 2, becoming the perfect speaker. Here's the thing, everybody. I want you to write this down or tweet it or whatever you want to do, but I believe that you need to worry less about perfection on the stage or in a public forum than you do about connection. Because the only thing people nowadays care about is connection. And if they care for you to be perfect, they probably have some personal development growth to do. Okay? So just let that be their issue. All your job is to connect with the audience. That's it. But, as I said earlier, it is done through a system. You don't have to sound like me, you don't have to sound like your favorite speaker, but you do have to have a system. Does this make sense? Okay? So I'm just going to really quickly share with you the other thing, not just perfection that stops people, but procrastination stops people. So how many of you know you want to do some speaking, even at least start speaking, or maybe speak once a month more, but you're not doing it quite yet? Yeah, so quite a few of you, right? Yeah, so that's very, very common. And the reason for it, again, is because you're worried that you won't get the results that you think you would like to get. So that's, again, why I'm saying, if you want to learn the system, that's an important piece that may be missing in your life. So the last thing is fear of selling. Now, almost everybody has some discomfort with selling, even just a little bit, and that's completely normal. But again, would that fear be subsided if you knew that you were going to have an average result every time you spoke? Yes or no? Yes? Yes. Okay. So here's the thing. On this side, we have the perfectionists, and they will not speak until it's perfect. And on this side, we have the people that will speak any time of the day. And we call them the wingers. They wing it, right? But these people actually think they're better than those people, right? Now, neither one is a good idea, and I'll tell you why. Over here, they procrastinate because they want to be perfect. Over here, they're messing themselves up because they don't know why they did well or why they didn't do well. And they've got this roller coaster going, and sometimes they do well and sometimes they don't, and sometimes they get results and sometimes they don't. They have no system. So the best thing to do is to be in the middle with a system. And then these two things won't be fighting at you anymore, and you'll be on your way. Now, to end my talk today, there's a couple things I want to share with you. One is that I have many systems, but one of the most powerful is a system for a 60-minute talk. And if you're interested in that, you can come and talk to me later. It is our powerful Rock the Stage. It's known all over Canada for its ability to help people to get the talk done and get the offer done. However, today, what I'm going to do is give you a little bit of a taste of what I do with people. And that is that I'm going to send you a very detailed description of what you can say in 5 minutes when you've got only 5 minutes to speak that will get results. So this is if you're in a nonprofit, again, corporate, or entrepreneur. How you do that is simply come to the back, drop your business card off with me, and I will send this to you. If you don't have a business card, we have a place for you just to sign up there. So that is my gift to you today. And mistake number one, this is the biggest mistake of all, is that most of us women love to educate. In other words, we love to inform, we love to really help people, we love to assist people through information, education, or inspiration. However, the vast majority of women are not up here speaking because they're uncomfortable with the idea of selling. And let me tell you, no change happens until you're able to sell an idea, a product, or a program. Because inspiration lasts as long as a shower. Would you agree? So if you really want lasting impact, it's got to be much more. It's got to be much greater than the motivational, talk. And so that's what I want to help you all with today. This guy, I have to tell you, I have a crush on George Clooney. And Doesn't it kind of look like him? I look at that and I think, gee, I could help George. He looks a little upset. And the best way to help George and all the other people in the audience is not to overwhelm them with too much information. Most of us are trying to write 10 talks and squeeze it into one. How about let's just write one talk? One problem, one talk. How many problems in the talk? One. Just one. If you take anything away today, please listen to that. That is critical. The other thing is, don't see selling as separate from your talk. Listen, whether you're an entrepreneur like me or you're in the corporate world, I'm sorry to say this, but you are always selling. You are always selling. It is the art of being able to have people grow into their greatest self. Wow, that was a nice timing. Thank you. So just to finish off then, if you need a mentor and you're thinking, I may be the one, come and talk to me. I'm happy to help you. And the last thing is, at the back of the room, we all have our own things that you can take a look at. Mine happens to be just a small way for you to get started, and you can come and take a look. It's a 6 CD audio series. It's also digital format. Come and take a look if you're interested in speaking, sharing your message, and changing the world. Thank you.